Hey guys, this is Jam of JamOnline.ph and welcome back to my channel, and today we're gonna do a gaming review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Just to be clear with you guys, the one that we're using is the Exynos 990 variant, which is available here in the Philippines. So just to give you a short introduction about the smartphone, it packs a 6.9-inch display. As you can see in here, we got here a large 6.9-inch WQHD plus dynamic AMOLED 2x display. We also got here a 120Hz refresh rate on Full HD, which is really interesting. Again, Exynos 990 chipset. The variant that we got comes with 12 gigs of RAM because this is the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G. And then we also got here 256 gigs of internal storage. For the battery, we got here a 4,500 mAh hours. So I believe those are the things that matters when it comes to gaming. So let's proceed to our first game. So for our first game, we're gonna go all in with this one. This is Genshin Impact, one of the most popular ARPGs that is available right now on the Play Store. It's available on the PC and also on smartphones and tablets. So yes, this is the first game that we will try because in our experience, the Exynos processors tend to be hotter after a few minutes of usage. So we're gonna try this one first. So this one is still cool. Okay, so we're gonna check the temps right now. It's still at 35 degrees. That's, I think, the room temperature right now over here. And oh no, we're gonna try it again. Okay, so it's 34.7 degrees, so it isn't that hot yet. But let's see after playing this game for a while. Let's play the game for around 4 minutes and let's see what would happen to our FPS on this one. So as you can see, we got here the median FPS. That's 42 median frames per second right now. We're dropping to 38. So when it comes to the graphic settings, we've actually set it up at the highest settings possible for the smartphone. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so settings, as you can see in here, the graphics is set at the highest settings possible. Actually, the performance load is already overloaded, and we're running it at maximum 60 frames, but unfortunately we were not able to run the game at 60 frames per second right now. There's too much to load in this part of the map. Maybe let's go to Monsat and let's see if there will be difference when it comes to the median FPS. Okay, so it dropped to 29 to 3, maybe because of the loading screen. Again, we got here an adaptive display, so it helps in conserving the battery on the smartphone. Okay, wow. So we're dropping to 34 to 33, and the median frames per second right now is 41. This isn't good. But actually, I've been playing this game for a while now. I've been playing it for a week already, I think, and I've experienced that there are some actually there's a lot of frame drops depending on the action, depending on the how many objects are loading on this game. So yeah, let's try checking out some chili hurls or Healy churls outside. Let's see what will be the frames on that one. But right now we're running it at 30 frames per second. Okay, I'm expecting it to drop. I mean, another thing, by the way, I'm using this cable. It's connected to my PC for the benchmark, so it helps. It actually adds to the temperature of the smartphone. So yeah. So let's see. Let's try finding some mobs in here. Let's see if there will be some effect to the FPS of the smartphone. As you can see in here, it's still at running at 30, 37. So the median around on the median FPS of this smartphone is around 34, despite having it at a maximum frame rate of 60. I'm not surprised though. I mean, this is a really heavy and demanding game. A lot of smartphones are still having problems running this one. Actually, I can notice that the smartphone is running below 30 frames per second. I don't know why this is running at below 30 frames per second. But yeah, I highly suggest that you turn down the graphic settings whenever you're playing Genshin Impact. Okay, so there's a lot of mobs in here, so let's see. So, okay, you can see that there's frame drops on this one. We're running at 17 to 16 frames per second. Okay, so I can also feel that the smartphone is getting warmer compared to the attempts earlier. So let's see. Again, you have to consider that the smartphone is actually charging and connected to my PC for the benchmark. So again, it adds to the temperature of this one. So let's see the graph that we're getting. So as you can see in here, the graph below, you can see that the trend is actually downwards, which means that the FPS is not consistent on this game. It's a little bit disappointing. But the fact that we're running the game at the highest settings is something that you should not worry about. It means that you can still turn down the settings and run the game at a more comfortable frames per second. Okay, so it's now down to 29 median frames per second. Okay, so let's see. Let's try using. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of effects that's going on the game. And right now, it's running at 18 frames per second. So yeah, it drops to 18 frames per second, which is a little bit disappointing. Right, I need to get some of these flowers, right? Okay, so we're gonna get some of those items first. So basically, this is just, you know, roaming around the game. We're not actually in a dungeon. So imagine if we're in a dungeon, there's a lot of enemies and things and stuff. Maybe it will affect your FPS even more. Okay, let's try this one. And yeah, the game is playable though. The game is still playable. However, I think if you're in a dungeon or in some quest that there's a lot of mobs, or it's very crucial because, you know, bosses and everything, I think you should tone down the settings to get a better frame rate on this one. So we're running it already at 6 minutes, and as you can see in the graph, yeah, it actually dropped. And then, oh, it's increasing right now, maybe because of there's a lot less to load right now, maybe. Yeah, as you can see, when we're outside Monsant, I'm actually not sure how to pronounce that one. You can notice that there's a drop in the FPS, in the median frames per second. So the median FPS right now is 26. This isn't going well, but if you turn down the settings, I believe you can run the game at more than 30 frames per second. So yeah, I guess that's it for Genshin Impact. Now let's proceed to our next game. In our next video, we're gonna play NBA 2K20. As you can see in here, we've set it up at the highest settings possible for the game, ultra high and high. So we're gonna try the game, and let's see the FPS that we will be getting on this smartphone. Okay, so let's start benchmarking this one. So as you can see in here, we're running the game right now, and it's running at 60 frames per second. I am not sure why the game is not running on 120 frames per second. I am not sure if that's a problem with the Samsung Galaxy Note20 Ultra or the problem with Game Bench. Okay, so it's running at 59 FPS right now. It's so disappointing that we're running it at 59 million frames per second. Okay, so we're running the game at 42 frames per second right now to 49. It's dropping actually. You can see the trend in here. It started at around 60 and it's going down to 44. So yeah, the same problem that we have experienced on the Exynos 990 of the Galaxy S20 Ultra before. Okay, and it's also better if you can get a third-party cooler. I'm sure that's available right now on Amazon and also at Lazada. You can get those things because the Exynos 990 tends to be hotter than expected. Actually, we're gonna use this temperature after the end of the first quarter. So yeah, the median frames per second right now is down to 43, and you can see the FPS is dropping to 34. That is disturbing actually. I mean, I can still play NBA 2K20 at 30 frames per second, but below that, that would really affect my experience on the smartphone. And I can really notice that there's some frame drops, a lot of dips when it comes to the FPS on the Galaxy Note20 Ultra when playing NBA 2K20. Okay, so it's still at 41 median frames per second, and yeah, the FPS is running right now 37 during close-up, 41, 43. Okay, I'm just looking at the data on my monitor. It's hard to... There we go, it's still 41, and yeah, it's not consistent when it comes to the FPS. Okay, so we've finished benchmarking the smartphone. We've reached the 5-minute mark, and we've seen that the trend went down talaga. And the median frames per second is 40, and we were not able to get a 120 frames or 120 FPS on this smartphone, maybe because of the Exynos 990. So, time to proceed to our next game. So for our next game, it's Call of Duty Mobile. So as you can see in here, the graphics settings is set at high. So we can set it at the maximum frame rate, depth of field on, shadows on, ragdoll on. Basically similar to other Android smartphones. So let's try playing the game. Multiplayer, and just like the other gaming reviews that we have tried before, we're gonna play Team Deathmatch on Nooktown. So let's see. So once mag-start na tayo with Nooktown, we can start Game Bench. Okay, so let's start benchmarking this one on Game Bench. So let's see. Okay, so right now we're getting a median frames per second of 58 to 55. So let's see. And our median frames per second is still at 58. It's dropping to 55 right now. I'm not sure why. But yeah, it's barely noticeable that we're getting frame drops in here. It's barely noticeable that 4 frames per second isn't that much. But the median frames per second is 58, so I'm fine with that. Okay, so far you can see in the graph below that the smartphone's FPS is quite consistent. It's dropping to 55. That's the lowest FPS that I've seen so far. And what I like about Call of Duty Mobile is their games are actually optimized whatever processor that you are using. Even if that's an entry-level processor, you wouldn't have any problems running Call of Duty Mobile. So there we go. We're about to end the game. And yeah, basically, it's clean. It's good. It runs really fine. It's 58 median frames per second. So there's nothing really to worry about the smartphone when it comes to this game. So yeah, let's proceed to our next game. For our next game, it's PUBG Mobile. So as you can see in here, this is the latest version of PUBG Mobile. We're running the game at, okay, we're gonna run the game at HDR Ultra because it's Smooth Extreme. Okay, let's try Smooth Extreme if we can get 60 frames per second on this one. When you're playing FPS games, you would prefer having a better frame rates rather than better graphics, because if you have a better frame rates, you could kill your enemies easier and faster, and you will have an advantage when it comes to other enemies. Okay, so time to play the game in Team Deathmatch, and let's see if we'll have a good frame rates on this one. So give me a second. So we're running the game already, so let's start benchmarking this one. Again, this one is in smooth extreme frame rates. And let's see what are the frame rates, what's the median frames per second that we will get on this one. Right, so yeah, so right now we're running it at 58 median frames per second. There's a slight drop. Okay, it's running at 60 frames per second. That's fine with me as long as it's running at 60 frames per second. Unfortunately, there's no 90 frames per second on this one. It's, I believe, exclusive to OnePlus devices. Okay, we got a median frames per second of 57. It's dropping to 53. So the FPS drop isn't that much. So yet. So we'll check that out later. So the median frames per second that we're getting right now is 54. So basically, the Exynos 990 is not consistent. So far, my performance has not been affected. But as you can see in here, the FPS graph isn't that good. That isn't great. But so far, it's just fine. It's just fine with me. Maybe I'm just a terrible player, so I'm not sure if it's really affecting my gameplay. But so far, yeah, I'm still good with this one. So far, but when you look at the graph, that 48 frames per second that we're getting right now, that's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying that we're having that. Okay, it went down to 42, I think. Wow. So, the problem that we have encountered before on Exynos 990 is still here. The FPS stability isn't that good. And, well, the FPS is more like comparable to a premium mid-range smartphones. You have to take note that I have connected the smartphone to my PC just to get the benchmark. So, it also adds to the temperature of the smartphone. So, it's 5 minutes and 50 seconds. We got a 51 median frames per second. And the graph isn't that good, so time to check the temps. I think on the camera, it's hotter in the camera. Okay, so as you can see, we've reached 43 in our temps. That was hot. 42. Okay, there we go. So okay, we're getting up to 44 degrees Celsius, 45 even on the Samsung Galaxy Note20 Ultra's Exynos 990. That is quite hot for a smartphone. That is quite hot. So you've seen PUBG Mobile. Now let's proceed to our last game, which is Black Desert Mobile. For our last game, it's Black Desert Mobile. So the game automatically adjusts the graphic settings whenever the smartphone feels hot or it's throttling or whatever. Anyway, we're playing Black Desert Mobile in here, and as you can see in here, the graphic settings is set at high, the maximum settings possible on the smartphone. So we're gonna try to benchmark this smartphone before the graphics turns down again, because it automatically adjusts to the optimized graphics for the smartphone whenever it feels hot or it's throttling or whatever. Anyway, it's running at 45 median frames per second right now, so it's a good sign. But let's see, once we are here at this kind of view, which is less demanding, which is more demanding, I believe. Okay, so with this, there's a lot of action that's going on. Let's see in here. So, is it dropping? No, it's actually pretty optimized on Black Desert Mobile, surprisingly. So, the Exynos 990 is doing pretty well on Black Desert Mobile. I believe it has been optimized even more compared to the previous generation of Exynos 990 on the Galaxy S20 Ultra. So, let's see. Let's try killing some more enemies or some more mobs on this smartphone. Okay, so a lot of things going on in here, but the median frames per second is still 45. Okay, there we go. We've seen a 41 frames per second on the smartphone. But yeah, you can see the graph. It's actually pretty fine. It is smooth so far, and I do not have any problems with it. So let's see if we go back to town. Let's see if there will be a lot of frame drops. No, really? Oh, wow, that's a boss. It's a large boss. Okay, can't beat that one. Can't beat that one. Anyway, we're going back. We're going to the Western Guard camp. And let's see. Okay, so yeah, we're getting 40 frames per second right now. That's 45 on the loading screen. Okay, that's 10, 30, understandable. Okay, so we're inside the camp right now, and we could see actually that the smartphone is doing just fine. It's 41 median frames per second. Again, Black Desert Mobile's maximum frames per second is 45. So having this kind of median FPS is already fine with me. It's 44, and I believe it has improved over the previous generation. And yes, it's warm, but it isn't as hot as the one on earlier. I don't think it will reach even up to 44 degrees Celsius. It's actually fine right now. So playing Black Desert Mobile would be just fine on the smartphone, surprisingly. So yeah, I think that's it for the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra's gaming review. So I have to stop benchmarking this one, and of course we will proceed to our verdict. So you have seen the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra's gaming prowess. I mean, the Exynos 990, it's still almost the same as the one that we have reviewed, the Galaxy S20 Ultra. And as you can see here, I'm still running Black Desert Mobile. I was actually surprised that the smartphone ran pretty well when it comes to Black Desert Mobile. Okay, just to give you the verdict, you can see below the results the results that we got. So for Call of Duty Mobile, we got a 58 frames per second with 100% FPS stability. So far I'm good with Call of Duty. It's not 60 frames per second. 58 is already fine with me, so I'm already fine with that one. No complaints at all. With Genshin Impact, one of the newest and hottest games right now in the market, and the best-selling game right now from China. This is Genshin Impact. It's really demanding. The game is available on the PC. It's also available on mobile. And I believe this is the most demanding smartphone game right now. And we got a 26 frames per second at the highest settings possible with 59% FPS stability. Actually, I am not surprised, since a lot of smartphone games are having problems running. Smartphones are having problems running Genshin Impact, since this one is really demanding. But I highly suggest that if you're getting the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, just tone down the settings and you will enjoy playing that game. Okay, with the third one, it's Black Desert Mobile. Surprisingly, Black Desert Mobile performs pretty well on the smartphone. It's 43 frames per second, and we got a 98% FPS stability. So despite a lot of things going on in the game, a lot of actions, Black Desert Mobile run pretty well on the Note 20 Ultra's Exynos 990. Okay, we also got here NBA 2K20, and I've noticed that the trend of the FPS is going down, maybe because of the throttling, but it's the same issue that we have experienced before on previous Exynos smartphones. So yeah, it's 40 median FPS with 70% FPS stability. It's the same issue that we have experienced before in the Exynos processors. Lastly, we got here PUBG Mobile. It's 51 frames per second with 97% FPS stability. Actually, I am not surprised again. I mean, this is also the same issue that we have experienced before. The stability wasn't that good, and the FPS, well, yes, we're able to run it at extreme settings, but it's set at smooth graphic settings, so it's a little bit disappointing for me. But at least the smartphone can run at extreme frame rates. So yeah, basically the Exynos 990 has limited again this amazing smartphone. The Galaxy Note20 Ultra, we got a really nice display, a really nice smartphone when it comes to design. The camera is just amazing, but the Exynos 990 has limited the smartphone again in some aspects. But don't get me wrong. I mean, this smartphone can still run the latest games like Genshin Impact, but you have to tone down or lower down your expectations for the Exynos 990. It runs like a premium mid-range smartphone rather than a flagship. But so far, when you're using the smartphone for browsing, for the S Pen and everything, it will do just fine. Okay, it will do just fine. Maybe it's just for the gaming, and where we're having problems on this one. Oh, and by the way, the thermals are, yeah, it's still disappointing too. We've reached 45 degrees Celsius, and off camera, I've experienced, I believe, hotter temperatures on this one, and I believe it will affect my gameplay soon on the smartphone. So yeah, I guess that's it for our gaming review of the Galaxy Note20 Ultra. So if you like this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, well, now is the time to subscribe. So once again, I'm Jam of JamOnline.ph. Thank you for watching, and see you guys again on my next video.